So as we begin, as we move into practice together, I'd like to bring into a spoken awareness, bring into our shared field in an articulated way the suffering, the grief of those who died in Texas, the children and the teachers, suffering of that community, and Uvalde. That's and in Buffalo the week before, and I think that we carry in our hearts sometimes with more attention, and other times it recedes to the background, and that's as it should be. We can't hold an intense awareness of pain and loss constantly. The war in Ukraine, so much suffering in many places. And we know that pain, we know from the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught that pain in life is unavoidable. There's some painful circumstances that seem to be just so, we just feel, isn't this avoidable? Couldn't this have been prevented? And we think of things that could have been done, perhaps, to prevent these shootings. And the Buddhist teachings are relevant to our reflections in this way as well. And I'd like to bring this into our reflections after our sitting. But for now, just giving space for whatever ways that we are connecting with and holding the sorrow, the grief, the loss, the anger, the outrage, the confusion, the bewilderment at, why does this keep happening? And to give space for that in the body with tenderness and with kindness and with respect. That it shows that we care. It shows that we're connected. And that connection and that caring is actually the key to how we can respond, how we can not just disconnect, not just turn away, but continue to care and to respond. So with this in mind, with all of this in mind, and also the beauty and the joy of the life around us, and the blooming and the pleasure that we take in responding to the renewal of life in this beautiful season. Let's begin by taking refuge, by chanting the refuges, and I'll share the screen. So as you wish, you can join in the chanting, or you can just read the English, or just listen, whatever you find most useful for you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So now chanting the precepts. Panatipata Veramani Sika Padam Samadhiyami. Adinadana Veramani Sika Padam Samadhiyami. Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sika Padam Samadhiyami. Musawada Veramani Sika Padam Samadhiyami. Sura Maraya Maja Pamadatana Veramani Sika Padam Samadhiyami. Idami Sila Maga Phala Nyanasa Pachayo Hotu. Sadhu, 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 anumodami. As you settle into your posture, whatever posture is most supportive to you at this moment, I invite you to take in consciously, mindfully, how each moment of sense awareness speaks to us of our interconnection with life, with all of life. Hearing the sounds of chanting, the sounds of birds, the sounds of traffic, whatever you're hearing. Even if you're hearing, sometimes we also hear just the inner sounds. When it becomes very silent, we might hear just the sound of our own body system, kind of a quiet hum. And seeing the objects, the space. There's always something to see because we're touching the earth all the time. So the touch awareness is also present. And the internal sense of touch in the body. Maybe smelling and tasting are in the background right now. Maybe that's not so present. And thoughts. Thoughts also are perceptions. We hear a sound, we see an object, perceptions arise. It's a form of thought. And the Buddha talked about those as thoughts also as being part of our senses. And so life is coming into being in our consciousness. Life is coming into being in consciousness each moment. There's no separateness, there's no separation from life, from the rest of life. We are life. Life manifests through us and in us. And our showing up at this time to practice together is an expression of our interconnection as a Sangha. So we show up to practice together not only for ourselves, but also for each other. It's a gift. It's a beautiful gift that we give ourselves and we give one another. So this also is an expression of our interconnection. So mindfully present in this body and mind. anchoring the attention in, perhaps in the breath, and feeling the rise and fall of the breath, perhaps in a sense of touch in the body, sitting on the earth, perhaps in sound. So the body gives us this opportunity to align mind and body. So often our minds are disconnected from this moment of living. And we're often past and future and fantasy, narrative, dramas. Self-constructions. And so our meditation practice is an opportunity to align body, heart, mind. Come back to this moment, be fully present. People who are just beginning meditation practice sometimes have the misconception that this coming home with this alignment of mind, body, heart means that we feel good all the time. I would say it's more a being present and being honest, being really honest with what's here. And if our home is really messy today, just knowing that and acknowledging that that space is, that's what's happening. And giving attention, staying present, allows the heart and mind to resolve itself. It's the avoidance, it's the turning away that, in a way, holds on. What we resist persists, is the saying. But acknowledging, yes, there's grief. Yes, there's confusion. I can welcome this. I can allow this. I can let this be. Just let it be. And find myself grounded in this body, in this breath, in this intention to live my life fully as it is, responding skillfully. And responding is not necessarily about needing to fix everything or anything. So let's give ourselves this space in silence, connected, connected in the body, connected to the life within us and around us, open, kind, allowing, accepting, attentive. Are there habits and patterns of the mind that the mind's attention has been drawn into? Certain ways of constructing a self, a separate self, of certain ways of perpetuating particular narratives about yourself, your life, the world around you. And then getting caught up in liking, disliking, wanting, not wanting. The mind does this. It's very conditioned in this way. So sustaining attention, sustaining mindfulness of the mind helps us to recognize those patterns and let go. And we can learn to inhabit the space of awareness within which those patterns arise. Because our thoughts are not the whole mind. And our thoughts about life are not life. Are not what life is. Finding stillness and openness and presence of the mind that is the space within which all experience arises and passes away, allows us to have so much more depth, so much more breadth of understanding, of connection with the life that can't be contained in words, can't be defined, can't be broken up into bits and put in boxes. The boxes of words and ideas and concepts. And this is available just for one moment. Noticing the space between the end of the exhalation and the beginning of the next inhalation. Noticing the space between thoughts. In that space, there's room for everyone. And everyone belongs. Let's dedicate the blessings of our practice to those who are grieving, to those who are feeling isolated, and to all of life, to all beings, human beings, and four-legged beings, and beings of and winged beings, and finned beings, and microscopic beings. Even the microscopic beings that inhabit our own bodies. May the blessings of our practice serve and support the life, the happiness and well-being and liberation of all beings. So please take a moment to just release your posture. You can stand up if you want. Stretch, just literally a minute to do that. Okay. So I put a name in the chat. Um, it's Aya Dhammapida. I listened to a talk that on Tricycle homepage, Tricycle magazine. Some of you may be familiar with it. Maybe you have a subscription. And she was, she's a bhikkhuni, a Buddhist nun. She's actually, she teaches, she's trained in and teaches from two streams, both Zen and Theravada. And she has, and I put in also the name of her organization. I think that's right. Uh, I, I wrote it down and then I couldn't quite read my own writing. So, um, but if you want, because her talk is also on that Dasanaya, I think it's called Dasanaya. But if you were to Google her, uh, for those who are here, if you want to look at my page, if you're interested, and you can do that at the end. So, and she gave a talk, a Dharma talk after the shootings in Uvalde, Texas, and just to to address the shock, the grief that she was feeling, and to address the question, how can we understand this in terms of the Dharma, and and how can we respond? Is there any way that we can respond? One of the things that she didn't talk about this so much, but I've noticed that there's a lot of oh, okay. Is this better, Viviana? Because the original, yeah, I forgot to turn the original sound off again. Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed, is how people, especially the gun rights, and I know we're in Canada. And this is not, it's not the same. So we don't, I mean, it's not the same level of insanity. These are our neighbors, and it affects us. And also we also have a lesser version of these problems. We're not without this kind of violence in our society. And a lot of people are very quick to say, well, this is an individual. This is because of these individuals who are, have a particular kind of mental illness, or even anyway, I won't go into what somebody said, but somebody was blaming that religion is not taught in schools anymore, and that's the reason why this evil comes up. And it's like really making this an individual problem. And what Ayya Dhammapita was pointing to was that she talked about some research that she read about people who had done such violent mass killings, and that people say, well, it's just it's hate, and it's somehow that is a blaming kind of thing, and it's not that the person is not responsible, but the research, which was done in interviews with dozens of shooters who had lived, who had survived, who hadn't killed themselves, showed that what was really at the bottom was this rage that somehow life wasn't giving them what they expected they should have, and they deserved. And their anguish was so great that they wanted to cause others to notice their anguish and to share in it. They wanted to cause so much anguish and pain and suffering so that they wouldn't be alone in theirs, and that they would be noticed. And so in this kind of really perverse way, it was a very destructive way of wanting to connect. And this delusion that somehow my life, I deserve, as a self, as a separate self, that, my life should be a certain way. And this kind of entitlement is what she was talking about. And the disconnect, the ignorance, really, because disconnect, this whole delusion of separateness and disconnect is an expression of what the Buddha pointed to as ignorance, which is at the root of human suffering. And so So how can we understand this? I mean, not in, I mean, it is shocking, and it just, I think one of the things that she was talking about was how in the United States, it's becoming so commonplace that people are even desensitized to it. I mean, it's another. She said, I think she said that's here we are in May, and that there have been almost 200 of these school shootings this year, which I found very shocking. So, so I'm talking about this because it is such, I mean, because I'm carrying it in my heart. And also because we're talking about, last week we talked about right view. We talked about understanding, that there is pain and suffering in life. There is dukkha, and that there is a cause to dukkha. And what is the cause to dukkha? The cause to dukkha is this craving, is this arising of this sense of self that wants things to be a particular way, that feels, I should be in control, or I want to be, I have to be in control, I have to get rid of certain kinds of experiences and have only other experiences, that denies the existence of our interconnectedness and the impact of what we do and how we live on those around us. And so, we were talking about right view, and so this is such an example of right view or wise view, and this is such an example. This is such an important way to look at how ignorance and delusion and wrong view or unwise view, to use a very gentle word, are at the root of suffering, at the root of the destructiveness and the harm that happens in the world. And, the greed, the exploitations, the launching of wars against people to take their land, to take their resources, disrupting their lives, inflicting violence, death. It all comes from delusion. So this question of, beginning, that the path begins with seeing things in a different way, seeing that, that I have the capacity to choose how will I respond, because I can see the conditions of my life that in a way that I blame everybody else. I blame my parents, I blame society, I blame those other people, whoever we other, in the way that we think, for my misfortune or things being in ways that I don't prefer them to be, that I wish they weren't, or not having certain things that I wish I did have. Or we can take responsibility for our responses. We can be responsible for, the word responsibility has response in it, that we can we can say, yes, the suffering is something that is created in the mind, and it has to do with how I react or respond to what's happening in this moment, and how I'm perceiving it, and how I'm naming it, and how I'm framing it. So rather than blaming others, rather than allowing that rage to take root, recognizing that this moment is connected to everything, to all the moments that have gone before, and to everything that's happening around us. And how in this moment can I show up most skillfully? So all of us, I think, have the experience of lashing out in rage or blaming, perhaps over the years we've learned to cause less, not to harm, that we've taken seriously our practice and want to not inflict harm on others. And we all have that capacity within us to blame, to disconnect. When we're suffering, we tend to disconnect. We tend to feel separate. We tend to feel isolated. We tend to feel alone. And so my invitation is to, as we embark on this study of the Eightfold Path that we're doing together over the next months, that we understand what is wise view, and then we also understand what is unwise view, and that we recognize that those who cause great harm are acting out of these seeds that have been planted and have grown very large and very powerful within them, but that also exist within us. So maybe I'll stop there, and I'll just we can, if you could stop the recording kindly, Vivian.